Welcome back again. My name is Homai, and in this video, we are going to discuss the interval of a second. So, like we talked about before, intervals are the distance between two notes. The numeric value, the number, the actual interval number, second, third, fourth, fifth, is solely based on the spelling of the note, not the accidental. So let's say that we have the notes C and D. C and D are always going to be seconds. Okay? So I can go ahead and write all these out. Every one of these pairs will always be the interval of a second, regardless of the accidental applied to them. Okay? So for now, just for simplicity's sake, we're just looking at C and D. Now, if you haven't checked out the Interval Basics 2 video where we talked about the half step and whole step, check that video out before this one. But if you already understand the difference between a half step and a whole step, you're good to go. How many half steps are between C and D? Let's count them. 1, 2. 2 half steps. Anytime you have a second that is 2 half steps apart, okay, this is a major second. So a major second is 2 half steps apart, which is 1 whole step. A major second interval is always 1 whole step apart. It's called a major second because it exists in the major scale, and also it tends to sound more major as opposed to minor, which sounds sadder. In this case, minor seconds sound very dissonant, or they don't sound very pleasant to the ear, typically speaking. So this is what it sounds like: C to D. That's a whole step. Okay. What if we're going a whole step higher than D? We're going to go another 2 half steps. So going up a major second from D, 1, 2, we'll take up to E. That means D to E is also a major second. So again, major seconds are always 1 whole step apart. Okay. However, if we're going, say from E to F, now E to F, this is no longer 2 whole steps apart. This is just, 2 half steps apart. This is just 1 half step apart. So it's not a major second anymore. It is now a minor second. So the minor second is only 1 half step apart. So E to F would be a half step. Let's listen to that. Notice how dissonant that sounds. Okay. So that's a minor second. All intervals follow this chart, so to speak. Oops. Okay. So the smallest intervals are diminished, followed by minor, major, and augmented in order of increasing distance between the notes. So for example, the major second, which the shorthand is just capital M2, a major second, we know that this was 2 half steps. Okay, so I'm just going to write HS for half steps in this case. The major second has 2 half steps. To turn a major second into a minor second, we subtract a half step because we're going smaller, major to minor. So a minor second has 1/2 step. If we're going to a diminished second, which you'll never see, but let's just say theoretically exists, we have to subtract another 1/2 step. Okay, which means that a diminished second, indicated by a degree symbol 2, actually has 0 1/2 steps, or no distance between them. Okay. If we go to an augmented second, we have to add a 1/2 step to this major second. And if we add a 1/2 step, that means the augmented second, indicated by a +2, actually has 3 1/2 steps. So anytime, it doesn't matter what interval it is, if you're going from a diminished to a minor, that's a difference of a 1/2 step. Minor to major, 1/2 step. Major to augmented, 1/2 step. That means if you're going from diminished to major, that's a whole step. Minor to augmented is a whole step difference in distance. So let's modify the second using these rules. Again, I'll just use a random note. This time, let's start with the note D. The diminished 1/2 step, let's say D to E, okay, has 0 1/2 steps. So that means I would have to make this E a double flat. Now, interestingly, E double flat is enharmonic to the note D. What does that mean? Enharmonic means that they are spelled differently, but they sound the same. Okay, so here's the note D. This also could be spelled E double flat, because here's E, down a 1/2 step, down another 1/2 step. So D to E double flat is a diminished second. This is a diminished second. Now let's make this into a minor second. How many 1/2 steps are in a minor second? Let's take a look to remind ourselves. Minor second, 1/2 step. So we have the note D. If we're modifying the E to make this 1/2 step apart, then we have to make this an E flat. Because here's E flat, that's a 1/2 step apart. So D to E flat is a 1/2 step apart. Okay. If we're going from D to E, well, that's a whole step apart. So that would be a major second. And lastly, let's make this into an augmented second. We add a sharp to the E, which means that the E will actually be here. Okay, because E sharp, and we count the 1/2 steps. 1, 2, 3 1/2 steps. So, 1/2 step, that's a minor second. Whole step, major second. 3 1/2 steps, or 1.5 steps, augmented second, so long as it is spelled as a second, meaning the notes are adjacent notes, D and E. For example, we note that this E sharp is also the note F. If it's spelled D and F, this is no longer a second, because D, E, F is a third. So this would be a third. Okay, so you can have intervals that are actually enharmonic as well. If it's spelled D to E sharp, that would be an augmented second. If it's spelled D to F, it would be a minor third. And we're going to talk about thirds in the next video. Again, let me know if you have any questions. I hope this video was helpful. If you need additional help, leave it in the comments section, and I will see about answering those questions. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.